Just when you thought the quarterback room was set in Norman, Oklahoma, the transfer portal strikes again.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins over at FanDuel.com. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire USA Today Sports, and today we're going to talk about the Oklahoma Sooners landing inside the top four for an interior offensive lineman in the 2026 recruiting class. We're also going to talk about what David Pollock, former Georgia Bulldog, had to say about the Sooners' playoff chances. But we're going to start with this, Jay. The Oklahoma Sooners lost another player to the transfer portal, one Cole Gonzalez.
As you said, the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away. And I know a lot of y'all going to be mad that I said that again because I say it all the time, but it's the truth. And in this situation, Oklahoma just missed out on a backup quarterback. Now, granted, I tweeted this out when it came down the line earlier today, and I had a lot of you in the mentions. And the one thing everybody pointed out was, remember, in 2022, we only had 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and it was really bad when we played Texas. Well, I'm going to be honest, y'all, this is a very much different situation in comparison to then, because remember, back then, we only had Dylan Gabriel, and we were trying to, we brought in transfer quarterbacks, but we had a lot of people just transfer out at the same time. So it was a situation where the options were bare minimum, and so we were just running with whatever was left over. Now we have John Mateer and Michael Hawkins, who are both available. And then honestly, I think Jet New would be just fine as a third string quarterback that can come in and clean up and do some mop-up duty. But John, I have this question for you. You think the Sooners are going to go after somebody else in the portal?
I think they should. You don't want to catch yourself in a situation where you have such bad injury luck that you don't have a veteran quarterback that you can go to. Listen, I like Jet New. I like what he showed on tape in high school. I've likened him to Sam Bradford, just with the size, the upright passing ability, his ability to deliver the ball on time. And this was a guy that Ben Arbuckle targeted as soon as he got to Oklahoma and got him to flip away from Oklahoma State. So I like Jet New and I like his ability. At the same time, we've seen what it can look like when you have an inexperienced quarterback in an SEC game, and it cannot look pretty at times. Do I like what he's capable of and the potential that he has? Absolutely. Do I feel comfortable with the idea of him going out there in a meaningful game and producing for you? Not necessarily. At the same time, if Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables and John Kuzieski, if they feel confident in the quarterback room as it's situated, then who am I to argue? Because you like John Mateer, you like what he brings to the table. Obviously, you're paying him big bucks to come. He was a top priority in the transfer portal. We like Michael Hawkins and the potential that he has, and he showed some really good things as a true freshman. He showed some things he had to improve on as a true freshman, but by all accounts, he's had a really, really good spring. And then again, I like Jet New. So if that's your kind of 3 quarterback hierarchy, and the Oklahoma Sooners decide they don't want to spend another roster spot on it, as we're still waiting on the House settlement to come down and what roster limits might look like or may not look like, then I understand maybe their hesitancy to go add another quarterback. But if there's a guy that makes sense, similar to the Casey Thompson kind of backup, a veteran that understands like, hey, man, I'm not going to be a high pick in the NFL draft if I get drafted at all. I just want a landing spot that allows me to potentially pursue a coaching career down the line.
Yeah, you're going to need someone that's just willing to come in and just be a backup quarterback, one that understands that their entire role here is to honestly do mop-up duty. And Cole Gonzalez, to me, kind of had that aesthetic to him. That's what I thought we were bringing him in for. And it looks like he didn't even win the second job. I'm not saying he did win it. I'm not saying he didn't win it, but it appears he didn't, because to me, if he did, I don't think he would have left. It would have felt like he would have been willing to be right behind Mateer. But at the same time, He's only got 1 year left of college football. So if he really wants to maximize that opportunity, he got a chance to compete at this level here internally. And so he probably is like, yeah, I think I want to go somewhere where I have an opportunity to start. There are some schools out there that could use a starting quarterback. There's some FCS schools available. There's still some other P4 and G5 schools that could use a quarterback. He may end up somewhere else because there are some teams that have seen some quarterbacks leave and seen some quarterbacks come in. And I think Oklahoma's probably going to go grab another one, John. It only makes sense for Ben Arbuckle to go look, actually Jim Nagy to go look for Ben Arbuckle and find him another one. There was a quarterback that hit the portal from Tulsa, Timothy Carpenter. He just hit the portal. He has 4 years of eligibility. Now, he is pretty young, so he's in the Michael Hawkins class, I guess you could say. But he comes from Ohio. He played ball, if I'm correct, against Reggie Powers III. On top of that, Kevin Wilson recruited him to Tulsa. So if we know someone that is really good with quarterbacks, typically, it's Kevin Wilson. And if Kevin Wilson thinks that there's a good opportunity to bring him here and he can be a part of just at least the rotation, shoot, I take it. Why not give it a try?
Well, and it's like we've talked about on a number of occasions all off season since the portal hit. You're going to need to have those arms, right? Did you get them?
Yeah, I think I did.
Nicely done.
Got them
Nicely
flying
done.
around me.
That's right. You got them hockey reflexes after going to watch the Kings play last night. No,
Yeah.
You're going to need another quarterback. You're going to need another arm as you potentially lose John Mateer after this season. Hopefully we get him one more year. Hopefully he wants to come and be here for 2 years, but you potentially lose him after the 2025 season. If he goes and has a big year, that leaves you with just Michael Hawkins and then Jet New and whichever quarterback you bring in. We discussed it on an episode earlier this week. You may not end up bringing in both Jaden O'Neal and Bo Bentley. So you may need another young quarterback to put in your developmental cycle and somebody to compete for that backup job with Jet New and whichever 2026 quarterback you bring in. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense to me. The other thing, Jay, and I'll let you start off on this, is Oklahoma's hosting a kicker right now. And we all know how much Oklahoma needs some kicking competition.
Yeah, Oklahoma, we all know that there's desperation for us in the transfer portal, especially around the position of kicker. So we know that Lance Mason, the tight end, came to visit. He left, went to Wisconsin, and it looks like he's going to do a visit with Purdue, and then and they're expecting a decision to happen sometime soon. And then from there, you got wide receiver Jermichael Carter, who's supposed to be here actually today. So we'll have something to talk about him here at the end of sometime probably on Monday's show. But then you also got UTSA kicker Tate Sandell. He's actually visiting. So he's coming in to do, look at being a kicker as well as doing kickoff duties. He did all of that at UTSA. And it sounds like the feedback is, it's pretty solid. Sounds like Oklahoma is going to be aggressive. So on Thursday, you had that visitor on campus. Maybe he sticks around for a couple of days. One thing we're going to have to do, and I was listening to Teddy and Gabe talk about this on Oklahoma Breakdown, that we really do need, there's another one. We need we're going to need a kicker, especially when you start looking at the games later on in the season, especially the tough ones, when we get past Texas, because we'll have a 5-game stretch. You're going to be playing against some tough competition. There's a very good chance those games are close. And if they're a close game, you want to make sure that you have good kicking, because that's going to be the end-all, be-all for a lot of those games.
Yeah, you can't play one-score games and not have your kicking situation solidified.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I want to say the non-call against Drake Stoops in the end zone against Oklahoma State was the reason that Oklahoma lost that game, Zach Schmidt missing 2 field goals in Bedlam, that hurts you a little bit too. So you've got to be able to hit kicks, and you got to be able to do it with consistency. So here's hoping that Oklahoma is able to land another kicker. And if he's a dude that can handle both kickoff duties and the place kicking duties, it helps save you potentially a roster spot too. Again, roster management is a key aspect of what college football is going to look like moving forward. College football, I don't know if he's a legend, but at least former Georgia football star David Pollock had some things to say about the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Did you know your Fire Stick is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA's Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite television shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. So the good thing is it's got the latest technology. So it's got Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and auto low latency mode, which advanced technology that's good for the Fire TV Stick 4K, and it delivers very smooth and responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds. You need to stay competitive. It's going to help you out a lot with that. So, I like to game. I play a lot of college football 25, and the ability to be able to play it on multiple televisions is huge. It allows for me to jump in a game with some friends real quick, or, I can go ahead and play alone and get my dynasty going. So make sure you check them out. Head to Amazon.com/FireTick-Locked-On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and a compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and Fire TV Cube third gen.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're going to be talking about Noah Best coming up in the third segment, a 4-star interior offensive lineman. But first, we got to talk about what David Pollock had to say about the Oklahoma Sooners on a recent episode of See Ball, Get Ball. He said, I think Oklahoma shoots up, like immediately shoots up and becomes exponentially more competitive. But the problem is the schedule. I don't think they're a team that is going to win 10 games and get to the college football playoff. Jay, am I taking crazy pills here, or is the schedule not really as tough as people want it to be?
The names on the schedule are very tough. Historically, those names are definitely ones that you would be terrified of. You would shiver in fear in seeing those names on your schedule. We're going up against like 7 new quarterbacks. Like, if anything, the Nico Yamaleava transfer kind of made it a little bit easier, possibly, for Oklahoma. Now, I like Joey Aguilar. I think he was a solid quarterback at Appalachian State, and he comes in with a lot of experience, and that's usually quarterbacks that Josh Heupel does very well with. Usually the second year, not the first. The second year is when they show up. So I can see Tennessee getting back to being a threat in another year. But this year with most of the schedule, look, I know that the Oklahoma Sooners did get, handed a pretty tough one last year. But you went up against a lot of experienced quarterbacks who was running in systems they've been in for a bit. We're not seeing that much this year. Texas, Arch Manning is probably one of the more tenured. Him, Nussmeier, and then Lenore Sellis. That's it. Everybody else is basically dealing with new quarterbacks, learning the system over the summer and in the spring and trying to figure things out. I'm not that threatened even by Lenore Sellers this time around because they lost some key defensive pieces, and we've got to see if he's going to develop better as a passer. Nussmeier should be good. There's no excuse, but that wide receiver room is still, they kind of revamped that. They've added some injured players as well, so we got to see if they're actually going to be ready to play. But then, John, you look at Texas. They're doing a whole refresh over there, and sometimes that works out well, sometimes it don't. We'll have to see, but if I'm being 100% honest, what about this schedule makes everyone feel like all those teams we're playing against going to be that good? If they are not that good, does that hurt us when it comes to the season? If we go out there and win those games, does that hurt us? And I get David Pollock saying we won't win 10 games. We got to prove it. I am totally in agreement on that. But John, please explain to me, what about this schedule is so terrifying?
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying I'm not terrified by the schedule. Are there teams on there that, look, were really good last year? Yeah, there were. You had Ole Miss that won, 10 games. You had South Carolina won 9 games. Tennessee won 10 games. Texas made it to the semifinals of the college football playoff. Michigan, 2 years ago was the national title team. Different head coach, a revamped team after a bunch of guys went to the NFL draft. There's a lot on the schedule that on the surface looks really tough. On the surface, it looks tough. But when you really start to think about it, It ain't that tough. You get to play Ole Miss in your building, and they're still not as good as a team as they were last year. You listen to our guy, Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss, talk about it, and he says that was the best roster in college football. And let's not forget, Oklahoma led them at half. If they had any semblance of an offense, they win that game because the defense was doing its work. They were doing great against Ole Miss. It's just Oklahoma didn't have an offense to take advantage of it. You look at the South Carolina game, who knows what that game looks like if you don't turn the ball over, if you punt the ball on your first 3 possessions. There's no telling what that game looks like, but you turn the ball over deep inside your own, territory. And what was it? 2 defensive touchdowns on those first 3 drives. That completely changes that completely changes everything in that game. There's no telling what that game looks like otherwise. The Texas game, Texas was really good last year. Oklahoma was terrible. You still don't know. And like you mentioned, Texas is going through a big revamp on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense is still going to be really good, but they lost a lot of experience in the secondary. Can Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill Jr. and some of those other pieces do enough to make up for those losses? We'll find out. But I don't think it's as tough as everybody wants to make it out to be. I really don't. I also have a little bit of a bone to pick with David here when he says they're going to be exponentially better. What do exponentially mean, David Pollock?
Is it one more win? I think it's one more win.
I mean,
I think
come on.
Exponentially for him is one more win. Like, what are we doing here?
This was a team that was a possession or 2 away from winning 8 games at least, with the 98th ranked scoring offense, with an offense that averaged 13 points per game in SEC play. If you take the defensive touchdowns away, like that was what this Oklahoma team was. You get them an offense, again, a top 50 offense, and this team is going to be flirting with 9-10 wins because, as you mentioned, it's not as difficult of a schedule as what we saw last year. It's just not. I'm sorry. They're not as talented teams. Are they potentially good teams? Yes, but they're not going to be nearly as talented as what we saw last year.
Just wait until you see the returning production for a lot of these schools from the transfer portal coming in and coming out. Oklahoma might shoot up a little bit more, especially adding those additional pieces. There's a very good chance that Oklahoma moves up, especially on the offensive side, because that's where we were technically the lowest when we had the article from Bill Connolly. We were a little bit lower on offense than we were on defense, but all we needed to do is add some more experience there, and we added a running back that it's going to really change a lot of stuff for us going forward. So it's amazing to me this is where we're at. I would not have expected that Pollock would say we are going to be exponentially better and then say we're not going to win 10 games. Like literally 3 games should have been won by the offense, just having a competent offense. And to me, you win 9 games on this schedule because of how hard everyone says it is. John, you're making the playoffs. Like that's it. You're going to go into the playoffs if you beat everybody that's of substance. You beat Michigan, you beat Texas, or if you lose to Texas, you beat everybody else, but you lose to, we'll say, Alabama and LSU. You're probably going to make the playoffs. They're going to look at you and say, this team's a little too good. Coming in the winter, overall 10, the defense was 46 in returning production with the offense at 6. And the offense is probably going to jump up a little bit more after adding more pieces. So again, as you asked the question, I asked the same one. What is exponentially better? What do we need to do for them to say, yeah, no, I think that they're at the point where they're going to cause problems?
Yeah, and I think this is just a reaction to going 6-7 a year ago that, like I talked about on the last episode, a lot of people just want to bury Oklahoma, that now they're a 6-win team year in and year out, when the reality is much more likely that Oklahoma just had an aberration year because of a terrible offense. And you can point to 2022 if you want to, but that was a year where you had a terrible defense. You had a really good offense, but a terrible defense because you lost guys like Nick Bonito and Isaiah Thomas and Perion Winfrey and Brian Asamoah and Deller and Turner Yell. Like you lost guys that got drafted. Dudes. And they were dudes. Like Nick Bonito has now turned into one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. So, and we know what the Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch defensive recruiting was looking like leading up to their departure.
That's a huge one.
There's reasons for it.
That's a huge one right there. Look
And
at
here
the
we
old
are.
regime.
This is a team that's restocked and reloaded. You might say, okay, what about wide receiver? I'll challenge you with Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania. Whatever else they do on the outside, you get those two guys on the field, and they're going to create a lot of havoc for teams in the secondary with yards after the catch. So I'm a believer in Oklahoma. Now, they got to go win games. I'm optimistic, but they got to go win the games. But
Hey, that's most important.
You get to November with 8 wins, and I like where you're sitting. If you can get down the stretch and go 2-2, or say you got 7 wins, but man, you gotta get to that final 4 games, final 4 games against Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. That's going to be a big stretch. But I think Oklahoma's done a lot this offseason to put themselves in a position to go be a contender. Last thought on this, Jay, before we get to some recruiting talk coming up in the next segment.
Yeah, with the competent offense and the way the schedule is set up to look pretty favorable, we should be fine. We'll shock the world. Barring injury. Knock on wood.
There you go. Oklahoma ready to shock the world. Coming up next, can Oklahoma pull off a big recruiting win? They're getting close. We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get into the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, so I can go in and pick, with my favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I can jump into some of the live bets because I'm usually always missing my opportunity to bet during the actual right before the game starts. I'll jump in the live, get in, put together some live props, and make a same-day parlay for a chance to win big. So thanks to FanDuel, it makes it super easy. You don't want to miss out on this, so go head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, also go check out Locked On NFL Draft because the NFL Draft is going down right now. You might want to see what your favorite team's going to do and hear analysis from local experts about what your favorite team is doing. Go check out Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get your podcast. It's also playoff time, so make sure you find your favorite team coverage here on the Locked On Network, whether it's basketball, NHL, Major League Baseball's in full swing. We got you covered. Every major team is covered here on Locked On. So, Jay, recruiting time. The Oklahoma Sooners have 4 prospects in their 2026 recruiting class. Could they be landing some more here shortly? Well, they landed in the top 4, top 5 for Noah Best, an interior offensive lineman from Midlothian, Texas, who included Oklahoma, Kansas State, SMU, Missouri, and Texas Tech in a top 5 that he dropped on Friday or Thursday evening, Jay.
Yeah, and he just finalized his official visit time for Oklahoma, with being the first weekend in June, the 6th through the 8th, and he's got his 5 teams. Oklahoma made the list, and there's going to be some stiff competition for the kid because he is really, really good. And a lot of people see him as an opportunity as someone that's going to be able to really show up and show out. We got to go against Kansas State, got to go against SMU. We got Missouri and Texas Tech, who are all looking for some good offensive linemen. Noah Best, he's spent a lot of time in Oklahoma. He's made a few visits on campus, and you can tell that he really likes what Oklahoma has to offer. He's visited 4 times already, and he'll have his official visit coming up here in June. So to me, if Oklahoma can woo him properly, and of course Bill Beatonbow is beloved by everybody, I think they have a really good chance of landing him.
Right now, the On3 recruiting prediction machine has Oklahoma as the heavy favorite for Noah Best. He's also got offers from LSU, A&M, Texas, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Wisconsin. So some stiff competition. We know Oklahoma is going to recruit well, but again, they've already done some really good stuff in the recruitment for Noah Best. This is one I feel like I remember maybe even a year ago them getting in on, and it seeming like Oklahoma was already in a really, really good position. He's a 4-star in the composite rankings. He's a 4-star over at Rivals. So potentially a player that if you can add him with a Will Conroy, who they already have a commitment from that's down now at IMG Academy, I think that gives you two really good interior offensive linemen to continue to build this class with.
Yeah, and we actually got a prediction in from Sean Williams. He put in a crystal ball for Oklahoma to land Noah Best back in January. So it sounds like a lot of the insiders still are, feeling things out to see kind of what Noah wants to do. But Oklahoma is very high on the list. And Bill Bedenbaugh's been winning some hearts over, man. He gets dude drafted often. Don't worry, he gets another player drafted soon, and guess what? Everybody gonna lose their mind and say, well, it's Bill Bedenbaugh. This is what he does. And this is why you're starting to see a lot of players gravitate to him and his ability to coach. That's how you get a Jake Michaela. He comes and he talks to Bedenbaugh and understands he's going to be able to teach him how to play all three positions on the interior, and he'll have an opportunity to make it to the NFL. And then you're going to see some linemen from Oklahoma get drafted next season with relative ease based upon what Bill Bedenbaugh's going to be putting together for him. So keep your eyes open, man. I think Noah Best is going to be a pretty solid option for Oklahoma. They just got to seal the deal.
The Oklahoma Sooners also issued several offers this week. One to a Reston Lehman, no relation to Teddy, but a defensive lineman. They also to Justin Weeks, another defensive lineman in the class. Oklahoma's got to continue to pick up blue chip prospects along the defensive line. They've done a good job over the last few recruiting cycles, really since they've gotten to Oklahoma. Grayson Halton was a 4-star prospect that was originally committed to Oregon. He ends up flipping to Oklahoma. Obviously, R. Mason Thomas was a 3-star that was committed to Iowa State, flips to Oklahoma. And then in 2023, got PJ Adebaware. In 2024, it's David Stone, Nigel Smith, Wyatt Gilmore, Danny Okoye, Jaden Jackson. But you got to continue to stack that. You got Trent Wilson in 2025 and Alexander Shieldknight, among others. But if Oklahoma can continue to build a blue chip defensive line, and these offers show that they're going to continue to be aggressive, it'll be huge for not only just building a good roster, but continue to build that goodwill among defensive linemen out in the country. Like, hey, we're going to put good talent around you.
Yeah. That's what's most important. You got to have good talent around you in order, of course, be successful. And I think that that's something that, Oklahoma's and Jim Nagy and that staff is really putting together for him, John. I guess now the question's going to be who else? Well, let's put it this way. The question is, when are we going to start seeing these 26s start to really just come down the line? We're about to head into May. This is quiet period. June is OV season. It's been a little quiet for the Sooners as of late, which is kind of a shocker.
Yeah, I would imagine that here in May, June, we start seeing more commitments coming. But you think back to, what was it, the 2024 class, the Michael Hawkins class, and we got to April and they didn't have anybody committed, but then they got Jeremiah Newcomb and Michael Hawkins committed in the month of April. And then things just kind of started to slowly snowball. Jayden O'Neal got the party started kind of early, right? And then, well, actually, I guess originally it was Jonathan Hatton got the party started really early before decommitting and then ultimately committing to Texas A&M. But, you've got these 4 that are part of the class right now, and it all kind of came pretty early for Oklahoma's typical recruiting timeline. But it's the May, June, July, August. That's when a lot of these commitments really, really start to hit, and Oklahoma really starts to build its class.
Yeah. I think we'll probably see a big, like I said, we'll see it probably about here in June, July. I'm thinking probably that's when you're going to see the bulk. And in August, hopefully Oklahoma can still pull off what they used to do, which is have majority of the class locked up before the season starts, and then have like a onesie, twosie in between there that you're going to go after in September, and try to be done before National Signing Day. I would love that. I actually love that philosophy and that thought process, because if you can do that, John, then you can really focus on everything else and just keep bringing them in to hang out and have a good time. So I think the Sooners are going to be focused on doing that going forward, and let's just cross our fingers and toes that it works out.
Yeah, and just when I'm on vacation at the end of June, beginning of July, that'll probably be when a lot of these, commitments come down, because that's just usually how it goes. But I remember last year, July was kind of a big month. They had several days where they had, or a couple days at least, where they got 2 commitments in one day, if I remember right. Like if it was a lot this past July or the July before that, where it was just like one after another, after another, after another. And I can't wait, because you know what? That gives us a lot more to talk about here on Locked On Sooners, as we're still 3 months away from the start of fall camp and college football in the fall. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. So make sure you follow us wherever you like to do your social media things. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. Let's get this recruiting party started. Oh, yeah. Somebody's got to get drafted.
Should probably hit